Hey everyone, in this video we're going to create our first view. It will be a base view. This view is responsible for converting strKeyName and all those like column names into more readable, user-friendly names. So like instead of strKeyName in the database view, you will see DataSetName. And we're going to use a pattern to create those columns, and then we'll create the base view. Now the base view is very important because we're not going to be directly querying tables. We're going to be querying views, and we won't have synonyms of tables. We'll have synonyms of views. So yeah, I hope you enjoy, and see you soon. Alright, so we have to add some more records to our dataset classification under the realm of view, because we didn't do that yet, and we only did file type, file group, and tables. So I'm going to keep the same common class and unassigned family in this chain, because when we dynamically call these types, we want to make sure that we're pretty consistent in how we're classifying the same subject. So for the type is where we're going to add the actual views that we are creating. So the first view, the view that we'll be creating in this video, is the base view, the view that talks directly to the table. And then I'm going to add views for our next video, and it'll be the insert view. Mind you, the name is what I'm saying, and the key name is just an upper version of it. But the insert view, the update view, the delete view, and the select view, we want to make sure that those data set types are there. Now, in our views, the data sets don't have the same column names as our tables do. We actually make a semi-readable version of these column names. So I want to create a function that will transform this data point name into a view name. So we're going to get the data point name, and we're going to get the data set name. So I'll just declare those two variables. And we're going to use pieces from the data set name and the data point name to create a new name, essentially. So we're going to need partial pieces of that name. So I'm going to declare the dataset name partial and the data point name partial. And then finally, we're going to add a suffix if it's a flag, so it just looks better, is easier to read. And then we're going to combine all of these pieces together and send it. So the first thing we want to do is rip apart the dataset name. Now all datasets have a 3-part TBL followed by a 3-part subject family, so we can just write the dataset name from the length minus those 6 characters. The second piece is if the data point name incoming begins with FLG, if you remember how our tables look, we want to make sure that we add the word flag at the end of that column. And then finally, we have to do a little bit of manipulation here. If double ifs, if the column begins with sys, we know it's a system generated column. Therefore, we know that we need to pull 6 characters off of it. So something like sysRef DataSetTypeId will actually be DataSetTypeId. And then if that's not the case, we know that it begins with one of our 3 parts. So str, int, flg. So we're just going to take the first 3 characters off. So now that we have these 2 parts, imagine dataset name of, table ref database now becomes just database. And then we have sysRef DatabaseId becomes database ID, we want to check to see if the partial name and the partial dataset name and the partial data point name match, because we don't want database ID, but we do want subject or database type, database family. So how we're going to read these views are, you're looking at a database type table or type view, database type view, and it'll say database type, name, database type, database family ID, database type, underscore cleanse to ID. So we really have this this pretty unique thing for readability and to create a unique column structure for the views themselves. Now the flag, like I was saying, we don't want database security or database active. We want database security flag, database active flag. So just a easy if statement to add that flag or not. Oh. Yep, and then we're going to return the data point name view. There we go. So that this is like most of the logic within the view generation itself. So now what I'm doing is this base view creator is going to take a dataset ID. So from that dataset ID, we are going to want the name. We're going to want to know where we need to store it, the database name. And we're going to iterate through all of the data points that we have stored, because the base is all columns. And then we're going to send that name and the dataset name to the function to be transformed. So we'll have a third data point name, because we need to create an as statement, so we can't overwrite. And because we have the database name, we need the database ID. The dataset ID that's incoming will take care of the other two. We need our scripts. And I'm going to create one extra one for data point list, which will just be a comma delimited value, comma delimited values for the select statement inside the view creation. So standard things again for the dataset ID, get the database ID and name. And for the database ID, get the database name. Oh, there we go. And now for the script, script's pretty simple, but there is a got you where create view has to be the first item in the batch, and we are just going to want to drop the view if it exists. We're not going to want to check if there are any differences. We're just going to do a quick drop and create. So people call this die functionality, drop if exists, DIE. So drop object if exists and the name. And since we're already using the database, we will be in that general, in our appropriate area. So now what I've done is I've created an execute statement within my dynamically executed code, because create view has to be the first item in the batch. So trying to dynamically execute Go is a pain. Therefore, we're just going to almost nested dynamic execution. So now, going through the cursor again, we are going to cursor through data points, and we are going to grab that name. Let me just fill out my cursor here. We're going to grab all the data points for the dataset ID. And get my other fetch next, data point name. And then we are going to fill the data point list, and using concat is a very important piece. I've done a lot of optimization testing with string plus string plus string and concat is by far superior than actually adding strings. It has something to do with the memory allocation that SQL does, so use concat the best you can. What I'm doing is the name as the transform name, and then I'm adding some formatting, char 13 and 10, trying to match SQL's formatting. I forgot to add the list itself. And then at the very end, I'm adding a comma for concatenation. Now I'll just give it a 1 and run it, and you could see what's being output. So we have this newly formed name that we're going to get really used to really fast. So instead of printing, I can replace this script. So just like we always do, a few replaces up, one for database, one for dataset, one for these data point lists. And we're going to take the database name and replace it with the database name. Same with dataset with dataset. And we're going to replace the data point list, except we're going to trim off that last comma. So we're going to run a left on the data point list, length of the data point list -1. And that should trim off that last comma we have so we don't get a syntax error. And then we're just going to execute, and that will be our base script, or our base view builder. I'm just going to test a few of them. 1, 2, 3, and 4. We'll go over to system, see what it looks like. There we go. And you see subject class, subject realm ID. And now we could just highlight all this code now that we verified it works. We're going to highlight all this code and create a new system object procedure. So PRC system object. This is a data set, and this is a view, but it's a base and a create. So I could just paste all the code, declare the dataset ID, and that's it. So I'll just scroll through the code so you can see what's going on. And there you have it. So I think that's about it for right now. I'll iterate through these tables offline, do the same, make sure all your base views are created. And thank you very much for watching. Remember, if you like this video, YouTube will recommend it to other users in our industry, and subscribe to support me. Thank you again, and I will see you next time.